Hello, Denimheads, and welcome to the 25th hangout with the Sons of Selvedge podcast. You heard that right. This is episode number 25. I guess that's kind of special for someone somewhere. This is a podcast where a group of friends get together to talk about denim, boots, rugged wear, and related interests. We aim for this to be a fun and inclusive podcast where you feel like you're hanging out with longtime friends, but be warned, there's a bit of banter, cutting up, and explicit language. In this episode, we'll be discussing the source of truth for jean leg cuts. What's loose fit, what's regular fit, what's slim fit. I think that's the best way to describe it. Also, we'll do a bit of Q&A and some current interests. And to kick things off, I'm David, and I'm currently wearing some Free Note Wilkes jeans in 17-ounce black selvage. It's their Western fit. It's great. I'm wearing a RGT work shirt and a S&S Herning Stark cardigan, which in my opinion is the best damn wool jumper on the planet.
Nice. Yeah. Love it.
I'm Ilya, and today I'm wearing Twerd MFG Dockers jeans and a newly released Black Horse Lane Atelier's chambray shirt, which hasn't hit the shelves just yet, but it will be by the time the podcast comes out. Yeah, it's got a little acorn-shaped pocket, which is really hard to see because it's self-stitched tonal stitching. So yeah, watch out for that one.
I think
that matches one of the jeans, right? Like one of the jeans has that pocket.
Yeah, so the SE1s and the E14s have a similar pocket shape, so it's inspired by that. And as far as I know, this shirt design's been around for a little while, but never saw the light of day. So it's finally coming out.
Was it designed for acorn farmers originally?
I think so. Yeah, they were collecting acorns in their pockets. Yeah, but we've only put one, so it's you have to swap around quite often. Tom?
Hello, yeah. I don't know why I was so confused there.
Because R comes before T, that's why.
Oh shit.
It's like you should go at last. Ricky,
Sorry.
you have literally messed this all up.
No, that was Ilya's job. Ilya did that.
Yeah, so what am I going to say? I've got some very nice anonymism mixed wool socks to keep the toesies cold because it's gotten really cold out there. Hate it. I've got a band t-shirt for a hardcore band called 88 Fingers Louie, who are from Chicago. Really cool band. Saw them in Camden Underworld, which is a very good gig. Oh, it was on a Tuesday though. Really weird day to have a gig. And then the jeans I'm wearing are my own United Overalls ED2 cinchback jeans. Do you like that? I felt like we need a little jingle there. But yeah, my new jeans, cinchback, suspender buttons. They're lovely and very.
Have they officially dropped?
I am typing the email as we type because the reason why they were delayed, which is we'll go into in the email. On my riveting machine, there's little attachments that kind of screw in. One actually pushes the washer onto the rivet, and then the other one kind of sets it, pushes it down a little bit more. It prints a little dimple in the top to kind of push the top out a little bit, kind of like a mushroom, to make sure that that washer doesn't pop out. I lost the first bit, which is not very helpful, and had to order a new one from Japan. So yeah, that's the reason why they were delayed.
Right, I'm Rick. I'm assuming that Tom finished, right?
Oh, you'll know when I finish. Because it went quiet. That's you guys.
Leave that in, David.
Leave
that.
Yeah, I'll leave that in.
Leave that in. Yeah.
It's tame enough.
Anyway, yeah, I'm wearing just a flannel from this is Warehouse. And I'm wearing the E14s that Ilya mentioned before. If you want to see the pocket,
Do you have acorns in them?
I'm gonna show you what. There you go. Do you like that acorn pocket? Is that okay?
For those who
You see
can't
it?
see, I'll describe Ricky's ass.
Yeah.
Round, juicy. Jeans are good too.
From the side, it actually looks more like a bell end, but that's a different. No, those are cool jeans. I'm kidding. I quite like
Fair enough.
them.
I ran out of breath just there. Exercise doing that.
Tiring work, this modeling lark.
Yeah.
It's not
No,
easy
these are
to
really
break in
cool.
raw denim.
No, these are great. These are really, really comfy jeans. They're just had warm soak last week or so. Yeah, and they're good to go. Man. Really nice. Super comfy.
Was the soak in the bath, or was it something self-inflicted?
No. Bath. Soak was warm soak. And then when I think I put them in the wash too, as well, and in the washing machine, because after soaking them, I realized it would take forever to dry them because it's really cold, and yeah, in the apartment, there's no good way
So
to dry them.
you didn't do the old put them on and get in the bath and
No. So what
wash
I
them
did
on
was,
yourself.
no, I put them in the washing machine, and then I dried them there. And yeah, so I did all the things people shouldn't do. What they say people shouldn't do. Yeah, and so after I dried, so that they were kind of like damp when they came out, and then I put them on. Then they were fine, and then yeah, they were good to go next day. Ooh, I can see those faces. Ooh, what have you done? What have you done?
No, it's fine.
I still
It's fine.
got you
It's all
beat.
good.
My score, my tally is 2 different leather patches ruined on pairs of jeans. So until you achieve at least that many deaths of lovely leather patches on your jeans, you haven't done that much bad.
Damaged leather patches.
Okay.
Yes, I had a pair of Ironhearts. They were actually the Rivet and Hide Ironheart 666 collaboration jean, like the very first Ironheart collab Rivet and Hide did, and I won them in a contest. And I basically was like drying them after their initial soak right next to my radiator because I figured why not. And it kind of like shrunk up and cracked the patch in a bunch of places such that like the imprint of the patch is no longer visible. And then also had a pair of 316 unsanforized jeans. They're Kabata jeans. And I basically just logistically, like my bath water didn't get hot enough, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'll just use the kettle. So I put kettle water in my bucket, and I didn't think about the fact that like leather patches are skin, and therefore boiling water will burn the skin, and like the patch shrunk up to like half the size of its original, and I had to like cut it off and resew a new one on.
I got a cool like almost like a watermark on mine, but yeah, it didn't shrink. Plus the leather patch is really thick.
Yeah, Ilya's got one the size of his head. His background.
That's right.
That's how
Yeah, it's
really
pretty
big
much
they are.
thick.
Yeah. It's an accurate size representation. They are
Scale.
pretty chunky.
Should we jump into some current interest?
Let's do it.
Cool. All right, I guess I can kick things off. So I discovered a podcast recently called Into America. It's, I guess, part of MSNBC, which is like an American news channel. And the host is a gent named Trymaine Lee. Super cool. It's basically all about being Black in America. So historical context, current day context, political events, cultural events, just a bunch of different things about what it means to be Black in America. And recently he did a series called Street Disciples, which is all kind of about the history of hip hop. And it, I think it's like a 5-part miniseries, and he kind of starts with, the origins of hip hop with, like Melly Mel and all the original kind of Grandmaster Flash, like different DJs and rappers and stuff in New York in the 80s and actually the late 70s and 80s, all the way to kind of current day. And he kind of talks on some like really interesting touchstones in hip hop history, like kind of Lauryn Hill being the voice for Black women and kind of like sense checking all of the like booty rap that was kind of becoming popular before that. Master P becoming kind of a rap mogul and building a business empire. Nas and kind of the sort of like the street knowledge, street intelligence kind of style of rap in the early 90s. Run DMC kind of shaping hip hop fashion. So he sort of kind of covers all the different aspects of the history, but he also goes into some really interesting stuff around like the crack cocaine epidemic in America. Even some things I hadn't understood around Joe Biden, our president, having put forth a lot of the legislation that led to the zero tolerance incarceration of largely Black youths in America in the late 80s, where basically, if you had anything whatsoever that's illegal, you got like maximum sentence. And it's crazy to hear that Biden, who I voted for, endorsed that and was a proponent of it. So it's kind of like a big kind of sense check for myself of like, wow, even who you think you support might not be all that great. And
yeah, he's done some bad things, Biden.
Yeah, well, it's like I'm a Democrat, so like I support him in that regard, but it's like it's a reminder that nothing's cut and dry, and no one in politics is scot-free. But anyways, I just thought it was a really great listen, also because Tremaine, I believe, grew up in New York when this was all happening, and like his brother even like put out a record, and he was kind of like right in the middle of the development of hip hop culture, and has some kind of anecdotes and stories from like being there from day one. So highly recommend folks giving that a listen.
That sounds really good. Yeah, I'll definitely. It's on my list of podcasts to listen to. So I'll be on that. Have you seen the Get Down series on Netflix, which kind of goes over that period in hip hop in the early 80s in New York? I think Nas was an executive producer on that show as well. Yeah, so if you're kind of it sounds like a visual representation of what kind of goes over. It really kind of tracks the early days of how the scene was and how it started, and how separate each part of hip hop was at the time. So yeah, I think you'd probably enjoy it, David.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. I read a book. Actually, I took a class back in high school. Sorry, not high school, college. Around is a sociology class around hip hop and sociology, and kind of how the music specifically can describe so many aspects of sociology. And there was a book we read called Yes, Yes, Y'all, Oral History of Hip Hop's First Decade.
Oh yeah.
By a few different authors, and like that book was pretty profound, because the whole narrative of hip hop history was all told through interviews and oral histories with people who were there and kind of what they experienced living through it. I thought that was really cool, because it felt very genuine, in the same way that I guess like a TV show or a podcast interviewing people would be. So I'll definitely have to check that show out on Netflix.
Who was the author of that book? I'm pretty sure I have that book somewhere around, and if I remember correctly, it came with a CD as well, like a mixtape, which was done by, I think, like one of the Quantum DJs.
Quite possibly, it's Jim Frick, Charlie Ahern, and Nelson George. I mean, gosh, I had this back in uni, so that was like almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't quite remember, but it's kind of like a big textbook size book, and I think it might have had a CD in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had the same book.
Yeah, but he's got like African Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash, Cool Herc, Melly Mel, Grand Wizard Theodore, Grandmaster Kaz, Fab Five Freddy. All these different interviews, and so I think think, yeah, it might have had a CD of their tracks on it. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think that's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah. Moving on to me, what have I been to? I've recently one of my colleagues at Black Horse Lane lent me the King of Vintage book by Larry McCahan, which we discussed recently as well, which features some amazing vintage pieces, and it has a bit of a description for each category by Rin Tanaka. So I posted recently in my stories some of the images, like leather jackets and some other pieces which really were quite striking. And on the vintage tip, about a week ago, there was a launch of the vintage showroom in London, which Roy and Doug recently, I think, have opened a new space in London, which I think they might be moving over to full time at some point. But it was really nice to go inside and see a lot of the kind of vintage pieces you normally see just in books or in magazines, like the King of Vintage ones. So yeah, that was really eye opening, and I think the way they run their business is they rent these items out to brands and to designers for inspiration and things like that. So yeah, it was nice to see kind of behind the scenes of this. And I never had the privilege of seeing the last showroom which they've had for a number of years. Although I visited their shop in Covent Garden numerous times when it was still open. So yeah, it was good to connect and to see that.
I hadn't realized that there was an intermediary. I figured they had kind of like stopped trading or something since they closed the Covent Garden store.
Yeah, I think they've always had a showroom when they
Okay.
had the shop same time. So I think they were running those side by side. And at some point when the shop closed, yeah, I think they just, I guess they had enough business to warrant it, not to worry about having a shop in Covent Garden anymore. And yeah, I don't know whether they're gonna reopen the shop at any point in time, but yeah, it was definitely one of the highlights in London on the vintage scene. So yeah.
I had a very funny experience with the vintage showroom years ago. So they came and did a photo shoot for their Worn magazine at Black Horse Lane. And there's one issue, I forgot which volume it is, but like it's got a bunch of photos of Han wearing like the E17 chore coat and all that good stuff. And I was so stoked. So I like popped on my cowboy boots and my best worn jeans and like my best worn Western shirt. And like I was there for the photo shoot and like did a bunch of photos and like zero made the magazine. I remember being so excited when it got delivered and like not in one single picture. And it was like soul destroying to be like, no, I tried so hard and I'm not wearing
because
vintage.
you were wearing all. Is that because you were wearing like 316 and Rogue Territory?
I think it was that none of
Wasn't
it was
cool.
actually
Yeah.
vintage. Yeah.
Always.
But their worn magazine, I'm not sure if it's like specifically vintage only versus just being stuff that's worn. And if it is the latter, then it was stuff that was well worn. But yeah, it wasn't. None of it was vintage.
It's from what I understand, it's usually both. It's like vintage, which has been worn quite extensively. They're probably, yeah, I think they're a lot more interested in the kind of more heritage side of things, and rather than the newer brands. But yeah, I can only imagine that that's what it was, but I'm sure they would have their own reasoning.
Yeah, I just chalked it up to the fact that like I wasn't wearing Black Horse and like I wasn't the owner of the business, so therefore, it's like just a random punter. But it is funny.
Oh.
Ricky?
Shall I go? Yeah. Cool. Not so much current interest, but more of what I've been up to lately. Because I've been accused of being going to too many gigs by friends of mine because they've been seeing my posts on Instagram. And yeah, so one of those gigs, I had the pleasure to go with David. We went to see this band who used to be called Viet Cong, but now is called oh blank. What is it, David?
Preoccupations.
Preoccupations. Yeah, sorry. Really, really, really great gig. We saw them at the Scala. It was packed, full house, and it was funny to see. Like at first, people, it was kind of like it felt like people were managing expectations, but then by the end of the gig, everyone was jumping around and stuff. So it was really, really fun to see that, see those guys play. But yeah, what else? I've seen. Oh, great interview by Rick Beato with Keith Jarrett. So anyone who's vaguely familiar with Keith Jarrett, he's probably one of the like piano gods, if I can say that, in jazz. Unfortunately, he suffered a stroke not too long ago, which incapacitated him from playing again. So he pretty much only has mobility in his right hand. But yeah, long story short, go see that interview because it's absolutely amazing. It's a bit on the geeky side because Rick Beato, for people who might be interested, is an ex-music producer, but he pretty much makes his life now solely on YouTube and giving like music courses and interviewing people in the music scene and stuff like that. So he's really, really good at what he does, and you can see the passion of his interviews coming across. Like as a fan, like he fanboys a lot with musicians that he interviews. So it's really cool to see that. What else? Oh, I went to see with Gilad. We went to see Gojira the other day, which is French metal band, which was great gig as well. Alexander, where was it? Alexander Palace. Packed house.
Yeah, that must
Crazy.
be intense.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I think there was around like 9,000 people there, and Alexander Palace is a massive venue. It was my first time, and I was not expecting it to be that big. And it was really, really cool to see that many people just watching this band that I saw like years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. They were at the Brixton Academy. Yeah, I saw them at Brixton Academy, and then 3 years. Fast forward 4 years. They're selling out pretty much Alexander Palace, which is triple the capacity pretty much. But yeah, it was really cool, really intense gig as well. What else? Oh, just last weekend, I got I massively geeked out on one of my favorite artists out there, Duke Garwood. He is a guitar player. He's London based. Well, he's English, but he's known for playing with one of my favorite artists, Mark Lanigan, and he put out 2 albums with him as well. People should go definitely check those 2 albums out, especially Black Pudding. Really, really good. Yeah, and so he's touring his latest album, which is Rogue's Gospel. Also pretty cool. Yeah, and yeah, lately that was it. There's a lot of going out to watch gigs. Fortunately, they've been all really, really good.
It feels like the year of the concert this year, maybe like post-pandemic or something. It feels like everyone's touring and like everything's happening in music. I'm loving it.
Yeah, people. It feels like agents are just putting the gigs in line, and everyone's just touring at the moment. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, same for me. I had a gig on Saturday seeing a band called Mum Jeans. They're like Midwest emo, sad boys. But that was a pretty good gig. I always run into people I know at gigs as well. Get a tap on the shoulder. I'm like, oh shit, that's you. And then I've got a band called The Hold Steady, which are very kind of just classic rock, Springsteen-y, but from Brooklyn. That's probably the worst Brooklyn accent ever. So them next Tuesday or Wednesday at Rough Trade East, which would be a good one. Get to sign a record as well, but I just bought CD because I don't have a record player. So that'll be fun. Then I've got one in June, a band called No Trigger, again an old hardcore punk band. I'm sure that's another one I'm forgetting. But yeah, gigs all around. It's just it never end.
So good.
So poor. I have to see them. What I'm waiting for is Streetlight Manifesto, who are my favourite ska punk band. They're like releasing a new album soon, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, they'll do a dedicated gig. Because I only ever come to festivals, and I don't go to a whole festival. So yeah, it really is the year for gigs.
David and I have got Souls of Mischief coming up, haven't we?
Mischief.
Mischief, yes.
Yeah, 93 till infinity. That's gonna be awesome. Such an amazing historical hip hop moment. Hieroglyphics, Souls of Mischief, that whole scene in the Bay Area. I can't wait. I've never seen them, but I've listened to their stuff and like Del, the funky Homo sapien, for so long. So I'm really stoked for that.
Where are they playing?
Jazz Cafe.
Oh wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, it'd be good. They had to do like 4 or 5 different nights because they'd do a night, it'd sell out, put another one up, sell out, another one up, sell out. And it just kept like boom, 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 selling out over and over. There's so much demand.
If you fancy joining, Ricky, just hopefully they still have tickets for the night.
Ooh, I'm tempted. When is this?
13th.
13th.
Checks his agenda.
For what it's worth, I actually phoned up the Corn Exchange, which is a venue here in Cambridge, yesterday, because Suede's playing here next week, and I was like, that's one of those like great British kind of post-punk rock bands that I've like never seen before. And I phoned them, I was like, hey, do you guys happen to have any tickets that like people have returned? They're like, yeah, we do, of course. So I was able to like buy a ticket like a week before the show for Suede, which has been sold out for months. And so definitely the phone the venue trick I found works so often to get tickets to sold out gigs.
Nice life hack there.
Sorry, I'm laughing about something on Reddit related to life hacks, but I'm not going to go on sex. It's not relevant. Cool. So I guess I'll do a quick second one. So I signed up with a couple of buddies of mine that live in Colorado. Pretty much my 2 best buddies growing up to hike the West Highland Way this spring, which is like 80 some odd miles from Milngay, which I think is a town north of Glasgow, all the way up to Fort William, going through like where James Bond's Skyfall and like all that kind of stuff took place. And the reason why I brought it up is I bought some Danner mountain lights a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe sometime during the pandemic. I was like, I needed new hiking boots because mine didn't fit anymore. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to splurge and get me some proper Danners. And I love them. They're so great. They've broken in amazing. Like, you know, they've got a lot of wear, but I got the damnedest thing that I still can't figure out. And that's that, like, there's like a seam right here where the 2 faces of the leather are sewn together. And like a year and a half in, and these bastards still give me like really horrible blisters on my Achilles. And like I'm literally like sitting here while we're on the phone, kind of like trying to work the leather in. I've put some like mink oil from Red Wing on it. I've tried flaxseed oil from who are the dudes in Portland that do the all vegan products? Otter Wax. And man, I just can't get this damn part to break in. And it's like I really need these this spring to do the hike. Otherwise, I got. You
tried vodka?
No, I haven't. Is that actually a thing?
Yeah, you drink the vodka before you put them on, and no pain felt.
Hey.
No. Seriously, a bit of vodka into the leather, should break. But it sounds like you've tried quite a few different things already.
Yeah. Yeah, my next step is to like get them back on when my legs healed up, because like it's right now I've got a plaster on from last weekend, and try and give that a shot. But because I walked like 12K in them, and like after 12K I was like I had a blister. It's like I'll be walking like 25K per day.
Wow, yeah, that's probably not the boot you want to take.
Yeah, well, I'm probably gonna have to basically buy some like Gore-Tex sneakers or something instead, like trail running shoes. Which I've got Lone Peak Ultra trail running shoes, which are amazing. Sorry, Ultra Lone Peak, but they're not Gore-Tex, so I may just have to like buy a pair of Gore-Tex ones. But yeah, it's a shame because these are like the most amazing, comfortable hiking boots I've ever owned. Like the construction's amazing. I mean, they're incredible, but it's like I can't use them for their primary purpose.
Do you have blisters on both feet?
No, it's just the right one. It's something about this particular lip on the right just kind of rubbing on my Achilles as the shoe's moving, even if it's like really well tightened. And sure enough, this part and the left one is softer. But you know, eventually they'll be good, but who knows how long it's going to take before they actually like properly break in.
Yeah, maybe take a bit of vodka to it. Maybe put like a towel or some kind of material over the top and like hammer it down or something like that. Get it really to soften up. And that might help a bit. But yeah, you might need to kind of work it a little bit.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the like more serious shoe products, like probably like the mink oil one, I believe they use turpentine. So when you open up a can of certain shoe waxes and shoe polishes, you get that like real hit of smell. Yeah, so like they definitely are putting like alcohols and solvents in some of the like hardcore things, which I guess probably does the same thing as vodka. But yeah, I'm so bummed because these would be like perfect for the trip, but I just year and a half in and they're still not quite broken in enough.
Yeah, I'd be wary of taking those. If what's the total distance?
Oh gosh, 85 miles.
Right. Okay.
But
and how many days you got to do it?
I think it's over 8 days. You're walking kind of 10, 15 miles a day, depending.
Okay, that's not that much, is it?
Yeah, it's pretty civilized, and like each step along the way, there'll be like a B&B or a hostel or a inn to stay in, and
Okay.
we'll have a good bed each night. We'll have a good pub dinner. And like you basically end up at Fort William, and then from there you can do Ben Nevis if you want, or you can do like the Harry Potter steam train up to Mallaig, which I've done once before. So yeah, it should be good, and we're doing it kind of right before summer, so we'll avoid the midges, which are like the little gnats that fly around and bite you. Apparently in America they're called no-see-ums because you can't see them.
Why do they always have to find another word for something? Just call them what they are.
You guys have like 5 words for everything.
I mean, if they're different things, then yeah.
No, it's like the same thing. It'll be like is it a pram, is a stroller, is a push cart, is a baby basket.
Yeah, that's a regional thing though. That's like
buggy
here in London. Northerners might call it a pram. Andy probably calls it something else.
His life. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, that'd be.
Is it all rough terrain, like mostly?
No, I think you're largely walking on kind of like gravel, dirt trails. I don't think any of it's like paved or anything, but you're walking on kind of like kind of like the Portugal coastal path trail. It's like well curated, nice trails. There are, I think, some parts where you're crossing streams and dealing with like wind, rainfall, that kind of stuff. So like definitely like gotta have Gore-Tex.
I'd cross streams with you guys.
What's up?
I'd cross streams with you guys.
Play swords. What movie is that in? With Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito? Kindergarten Cop?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know my references. But anyways, that's it for me. Going to be interesting to see how the hike goes. I won't be wearing any rugged equipment now that these guys aren't in the loop. I'll be wearing all synthetic taped Gore-Tex shit that eventually just falls apart. So afraid I won't have any cool patina stories like 8 days on the trail and look what I did to break this thing in. It's going to be all like, I washed my synthetics and they're great until they fall apart.
Bring some jeans. Should bring some jeans. Such a missed opportunity.
I could wear jeans under waterproof hiking pants. Like I'll go. That actually be a cool thing to do, to like do like a West Highland Way walk or something of this nature, but like do it Rudy style, where you just do multiple layers of denim and like just put ourselves through some grueling shit. Like, I don't know, walk the G20 and
I've always taken like both my United Overalls jeans up mountains, just in Red Wings. So what's the highest one in Wales?
Snowdon?
Maybe not Snowdon, maybe the other one. There's another mountain in Wales. And the Lake District one. I've been up that one. But yeah, I always mountain it in my jeans. If they're loose enough to sit down in, they're loose enough to climb in.
David should get a pair at least 18-ounce jeans. At least 18 ounce, just to go on that hike.
I think the hard part though is if you're carrying a backpack every day and you got to have like the hip thingy, because you got to carry a bunch of shit for like 8 days, even if you're sleeping nice. I think that on like a pair of jeans on your hips would probably not go so well.
If you wear a proper straight pair of jeans, you're fine.
Well, no, it's like
segue.
Well, actually, no. I would challenge that. I would challenge that because a proper rise in a pair of jeans means that the jeans would be sitting on your hips, right? Like hips to waist. But that's exactly where the padded padded strap of the backpack is supposed to sit. So like it's literally perfectly lining up the weight placement from the pack on like where your belt and your jeans are. So like as a prop, it would be like right here is your backpack, you know.
I wonder why you
have to have a proper rise as well. If you have enough high enough rise, you'll be okay. None of this showing off your navel or your pubis bone.
Yeah, shit.
David's still not convinced.
Fuck you.
I mean, that could actually be kind of cool if you went like all like Arctic Explorer style hike, like, you know, like the guys that Nigel Caborn's always inspired by. There's actually in Cambridge, there's a Arctic expedition museum that I've never been to. Polar exhibition, polar research and exploration center or something like that. So I should check that out. There's nothing else to do here.
Yeah, don't take your jeans. Just take something comfortable.
Gore-Tex it is. Until it falls apart.
I was expecting Ilya to finish with a loose pair of jeans.
No. I'll be practical and advise something that's going to be comfortable for David. If it's a one day, then I'd say, you know, wear the jeans. It's fine.
Yeah, sure.
If you're going for, you know, for such a dedicated long time, then yeah, something a little bit more that'll do the trick.
Yeah, let's see how much I love it, whether I'm pulling my hair out or whether it's a great experience or both. So it could literally like piss down rain for like 8 days straight. But there will be distilleries along the way, so get a nice dram and keep it in the pour it in the Camelback and you sip that sucker while you're walking. It'll pass.
Oh, do you know which distilleries are on the way? Have you looked into that, or are you just?
My buddy Vince has. He's the guy who runs Steamboat Leather up in Colorado. A friend of mine. He's been doing all the homework. Because he's done a lot of these kind of like long distance backpacking trips, and he's kind of identified a few distilleries along the way and kind of stuff like that. So I need to actually sit down with the spreadsheet and kind of get up to speed on it. But there will be some. There will be some.
Nice. Anyone else wants to discuss their current interests?
Not a lot for me. Obviously been catching up on The Last of Us. Great series. And outside my work, I was standing outside with someone smoking. I don't smoke. I'm a good boy. And the other person just went, "Oh, it's Pedro Pascal." What? And he just was rocking past us, and we just stared in amazement. And we were like, "No, surely that's not him." But you can tell, like, you know, he was like the right build. You know, we saw the scraggly beard. And then he was with a woman, and we checked his Instagram because obviously we had to stalk him in 2 seconds. And that was his wife. And he had taken pictures with other people in London. So we didn't get a picture with him, but Pedro Pascal was all of like 2 or 3 meters away from me.
You should have said like, "This is the way" when you walked past or something.
Yeah, definitely. I know, you know when you just kind of like stand there, you're just like, and then by the time like your brain kind of restarts again, they're off in the distance, and it didn't even take a video until it was down the street. Like, starstruck.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the episodes now. I'm fully in.
You're into it now.
I'm into it now. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
I'm mildly miffed about it. So I accidentally started watching it because, as I said, I was like not taking any TV streaming services at the moment, and like I don't even technically have a TV. I just have this laptop. But my internet provider is also the company that offers HBO in the UK, Now TV. And so I like somehow had accidentally signed myself up for Now TV's streaming service. And I was like, well, shit, if I've already paid for it, I might as well at least watch Last of Us while I'm at it. But I got really upset though because episode 6, without giving any spoilers away, what they allude is coming in episode 7. I'm pretty sure that's stuff from the second video game. So as far as I can tell, they're going to go into Last of Us Part 2 in season 1 of the show because there's 9 episodes. And like the little preview they show at the end, I was like, I think that's stuff in the next video game.
Yeah,
I think they've mixed a lot of stuff, and some of it, you know, wasn't even in the game at all anyway. So I think, I don't know whether they will do, you know, multiple seasons of this. I guess that depends how popular it is. They can always write more, but I would imagine it will be a kind of a 1 season or 2 season max kind of show. I don't see this dragging on for, you know, 10 seasons. I think Neil Druckmann probably wouldn't let that happen anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a little bit of overlap between the two games, and within the series. So yeah.
It's like, you thought this was The Last of Us, but actually those other people, they're The Last of Us. Get ready for season 2.
Oh,
Actually, they're not the last ones either. Season 3.
Yeah, no, yeah, I can see them maybe doing 1, maybe 2 at a stretch. Yeah, it depends, like, kind of if they mix up the order of stuff. But also watch the first episode of The Mandalorian. So Pedro Pascal is just, he's in all my dreams, and not a lot of them very suitable for work.
I highly recommend the Saturday Night Live episode he hosted like a few weeks back. There's just so many funny sketches on there. He really is in his element doing comedy stuff. Like, highly recommend watching it.
He's a funny guy. Like, you see him in interviews and stuff, and he's like, they're like, "Oh, did you know you're such a kind of sex icon and stuff?" And he's like, yeah, well, I do read people's fan posts when I'm feeling sad." It's like, of course you do, Daddy Pedro.
Well, actually, specifically, that SNL episode, they did a sketch where like he's a substitute teacher at a school, or he's the principal, something like that, and like he's doing like an auditorium announcement to all of the school kids, and they're like doing, I guess, what's called a thirst trap on TikTok, like while he's on stage.
Yeah,
and
sounds right.
It gets like brought up on the projector, and they're like, "Oh, make sure you eat all those brownies, baby daddy." And he's like, "What brownies? What baby?" And they're just like like trolling him with like these thirst trap videos, which
Yeah.
are like while he's doing his speech. It's really, really funny, even though I don't understand TikTok, so I don't really understand what I'm watching.
All that Zoomer terminology. Yeah, apart from that, yeah, really not much. Working hard, and yeah. How about you, Ricky?
As in current interests?
What did we do? Did we do you, Ricky?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right
Just
there.
yeah. That's it then.
Two is not obligatory, but it's certainly welcome if you've got something else you want to talk about.
Yeah, no. Not much. Yeah, not much going on other than that.
Cool. I guess anything else for anyone else, or should we transition to the discussion topic?
Get into it.
All right. Although I guess discussion topic's probably a bit overselling it. Maybe what we should actually call this episode is WhatsApp debate turned podcast episode. Because I guess actually, Ilya, you kick it off because you had shared the Okayama Denim post, which was the catalyst for the conversations. Maybe if you want to frame it for us.
Yeah, I saw Okayama's Denim's recent post, which was a wide leg trouser. They are now selling in the store, and I think my post kind of said something like, "Oh, the wide leg is really popular if someone like Okayama Denim is selling this kind of style of trouser now, because for a long time, the higher selling jeans have always been quite a slim taper, high taper, things like that. So you can really see that the marketplace is changing across a lot of retailers and a lot of brands who are releasing wide cuts now, which led to a kind of a discussion between the group saying, what is a wide cut, what's a regular, what's a straight cut, and basically me pretty much disagreeing with David, who thinks PBJ, for example, do a straight cut, and I say it's more of a slim cut, even they're supposed to be regular straight. So that kind of gave us the idea of maybe discussing fits and kind of maybe some of the origins and what they have become recently.
Yeah, and one thing that kind of came to my mind is that when we were having that debate on WhatsApp, I was thinking about the fact that like certain garments are called slim, certain garments are called regular, and certain garments are called wide. So in theory, that's like almost like agreed upon range where it's like, if your jean is this wide to this wide, it must be a slim. This to this a regular, this to this, a wide, whatever. And it sounds like, oh well, regular must be in the middle. But then you guys kind of reminded me that like actually regulars in the context of what we know now today, that's regular, but at some point in time, as Ilya is saying, that might have been slim. And so I guess part of this is like this kind of moment in time conversation that came up about like, well, when is it that we set the rules, right? And like, I think Ricky, you might have been arguing for like a living rule set where it's like you got to look at different ones, if I remember correctly. And I think Tom and Ilya, you guys were both of the boat of like, I think 30s and 40s kind of set the rules. So maybe that's interesting to discuss.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. Like, I don't want to preach this. Obviously, I'm not entitled to any.
Preach, girl.
We're not even entitled to have a podcast, man. Here we are.
Yeah.
You know what? Funny enough, I thought about this. I thought that it's a shame Lex is not here because him as a pattern cutter would be like much more qualified.
More qualified than any of us to speak about this, and we're just amateurs who are just gonna give our own opinion, which is biased and to suit our own agenda. Yes, that's right, Ricky.
Now, when has this podcast ever been about expert opinions?
I will have you know, I make 2 stars of jeans. I am more than qualified.
Wait a minute. Who designed them?
I done the first one actually. That was all me, although most of the patterns was stolen from Mosin, but amended to my shape. But yeah, let's the second
well
one.
then.
So fuck you.
Well, that's a good starting point because you mentioned shape, and so if we're talking about denim specifically, like the brands that a lot of people are into, some of them we know that the sizes that they choose are based on their own. So the person who makes the jeans, right? They're pretty much measured with their own size, with their own personal measurements. Now, obviously, the industry, like the big shots in the industry, like the Levi's and the Lees of the world, they can't abide by this rule, obviously. So they have to have more generic types of fits, I would say, where it would not one size fits all, but one cut might suit a lot of different, body shapes. I would just say that whatever fits you the best, if you want to feel more comfortable in a pair of jeans, or not, or if you've just seen someone that you really, you saw a pair of jeans on someone that you saw that you really appreciate, that you like, oh, that's cool, I'm going to try that, then I guess that works as well, if you, at the end of the day, if you like seeing them. But when it comes to cuts specifically, I just look at three types of cuts. It's either, they're straight, or sorry, two types of three types of cuts. So either loose, straight, or tapered. Now, people could argue there's a fourth with skinny, probably, but skinny, at the end of the day, it is a tapered cut, but it's just, way more tapered than anything else, I
Extreme
guess.
end of it.
Yeah. So how, if that's so if that would be, you know the cut, then you then the fit, obviously it has that, a slimmer fit or a looser fit, pretty much. Now, my body shape is definitely different than, David's, and David's different than Ilya's and stuff like that. So, it's funny, David was mentioning the different shape, where, regular was not necessarily a regular a few years ago, right? It depends on whoever was putting that on, because if someone is used to a very skinny jean, a very tapered jean, if they're going to put in a regular straight, it's they might feel, oh, this is a loose jean on me, right? And for someone who's used to using straight, regular jeans, and they put on a loose fit, a wider, like pre 1940s, uh, jean, then they'll definitely feel, oh, this is way bigger than I was expecting. You know what I mean? So I feel there's always this struggle between the body types and the cuts that you're looking after, because it's either what you see or what the brand is selling you. So there's definitely a lot of like vocabulary that gets, misconstrued there. So I don't know. Again, not preaching. I just, at the end of the day, I feel like it's whatever fits your body the best. But I only go with those three, with just a loose pair of jeans, a regular pair of jeans, and a tapered pair of jeans. Loose, generally speaking, is really comfortable around the seat and the hips, and it has a straight cut all the way down. Regular, a bit more, uh, a bit more, closer to the hips, I would say. And again, straight all the way down, and then, a tapered jean that would most likely taper from the knee down. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And
here-
I think what's important to preface is that, jeans pre 30s, or pre 40s was predominantly a working trouser,
Yeah.
and something you would actually wear over the top of other trousers, which is why they initially had that, really wide cuts, and that stuck for a very long time. And it was only into, post 40s into 50s when jeans became a fashion item that they started to become slimmer. And that's why you see post, 50s to 60s, that's when the big change happens. And the jeans get slimmed down because they are now being worn not just for work, they're actually being worn as a fashion item. And that's when that big the big change happens, basically. So if we're looking at that, and like what you're saying, Ricky, what people are used to wearing, if they are, they got into wearing jeans in the 2000s, and they were wearing skinny jeans, and all of a sudden they are presented with a wider cut, they're going to think like, what the hell is this? This is like so dramatically different. Whereas if somebody was wearing 501s in the 80s or the 70s, they will have a different viewpoint of what a straight jean is going to be like. So my point in our chat was, what era are you looking at when you're talking about straight jeans? Because I think that really really matters. So a lot of the repro guys and a lot of the guys who are like into more the heritage jeans, they look at World War II, for example, which is a little bit slimmer than what you'd find in in the 20s and the 30s, but it's still a very I would call it a very straight cut. There's not much taper going on. It's from the knee down. It's fairly straight. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think it definitely has been a case of fashion, whether that's high fashion or fast fashion, or just society as a whole has slowly redefined what they consider as regular or straight, or a normal rise, because back in the kind of turn of the century up to the 50s, a normal rise came up to your natural waist. But the definition of what waist is now is on your hip, which they're essentially two different measurements. If you ask a woman what her waist measurement is compared to her hip measurement, then you probably get slapped. So yeah, our kind of definitions of certain things have changed over time. Especially kind of working at Levi's, people will come in and say, oh, I want a 501. Well, a 501's changed over the last 100 or so years, and that person's definition of a 501 is different to the next person's definition of a 501, but both people consider a 501 a regular straight cut, even though at times it's been tapered, or it's been a higher rise, or a slightly lower rise, or fitted around the arse, or so these kind of definitions between everyone do slightly vary. But I think when you come from a tailoring or a pattern cutting view, it is okay, where's it sitting on the hip or the waist, how high is that rise, and how deep is that cut down the back, is it skimming up your ass and giving you a bit of butt shape, or is it as loose as a sack of shit and not giving you any shape at all? And then how does it fall from the waist? Does it balloon from the waist? Does it come out? Is it quite formed fitting? Does it come straight off your hips? That's where I think kind of the definitions skew if depending on what words you use and what your views of what that word is. So one person's straight cut isn't another person's straight cut. So that's probably just me expanding, just saying things here. But so I think when we took kind of PPJ, brands like that, even like Oni, I remember we had back at Son of a Stag Oni's straight cut. I can't remember which one it was, 277 or something like that. If you compared it to like a TCB 50s, it had barely any rise, crawled up your ass like there's no tomorrow, just because that's what the brand was used to. But then off the hips kind of came straight. most, the people who are calling TCB 50s a straight regular, that's not a straight regular. That's almost like a slim straight. The definitions can jump from one place to another.
Well, it's interesting. I've been staring at these jeans, kind of thinking while you guys have been talking about, like, how could one turn this into like a data problem, and like, can you like science out what's what? And I was thinking about it. It's like the closest thing that all jeans have, I guess, to like a frame of reference is the bottom of the rise, because in theory, if you're wearing the jeans where they were designed to be worn, at this always is kind of in the same place, and this just goes higher up your body based upon how the jean is cut, right? So it's either like at your navel, it's at your hip, it's at your below your hip, depending on the cut, right? It's like the front and back rise kind of, if worn correctly, makes the decision about how high up the jean goes in your body, and the rise should, in theory, always be in the same place. If you've got the bottom of the rise, if you've got like a drop bottom of the rise, you're not wearing the jean in the right place. So I was like, all right, so this is a frame of reference. I could, in theory, measure across here and get the width at the bottom rise, and I could basically say, okay, at what point does the jean start coming in? And like on these guys, which are quote unquote regular straight from Pure Blue Japan, you can see that instantly they start coming in, right? And it's like, well, maybe they're straight from the knee to the hem, but even there, technically speaking, there's actually still a little bit of taper, maybe like half an inch, such that if I put the hem at the kind of knee point, you can see roughly about half an inch on front and back, so say an inch in total. So it's like, well, these kind of taper a bit the whole way, even though they're straight. And so it's like, would you call it a straight leg if it's like straight from knee to hem? Would you call it a straight leg if it's straight from the crotch to the hem? And then also beyond that, you also have to figure out, for who the jeans cut for, did they add extra width such that the hip flares out rather than sitting against your leg? Because then that skews the rest of the metric. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that the way the jean looks on you is probably the best way to qualify, and not quantify, but qualify if it's straight or not, right? Like if when you're wearing it, if it looks like it's doing this, it's probably a regular straight. If it looks like it maybe kind of comes quite wide and then goes straight down, it's like a wide straight. If it tapers, but maybe kind of goes straight from the knee to the hem, then it's like a slim straight. And it's almost like there is no real science to it, maybe. I mean, you can get the numbers, but there's not like a formula, you know?
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. Sorry. That's exactly what I was arguing. Sorry. I was kind of like replaying what I just said in my head, and it sounded like a bunch of bullshit. But,
Don't we all?
Like I'm just like thinking as I'm going, so I don't want to ramble too much on this, but that's pretty much the point I was making. So it depends a lot on the body shape. I understand for the industry there has to be a frame of reference where then people they kind of like put their minds into this kind of like segment where I can only wear this shape or I can only wear that shape. So that's what the labels are there for. But speaking of labels, that I can see where Tom is coming from as well, but I would just say like era wise, anything before the 40s, I would probably say it's a looser fit. So I would say they it's kind of like what we discussed. So it's a loose straight fit, and 40s to 50s I would say regular straight, and then 60s onwards, then that's where I see things getting a bit slimmer and a bit more taper. So depending then a little bit on, because I remember Levi's, I have a pair of LVCs 1984s that they put out, right? And that is a straight jean. There's no like going around. It goes straight from my hip down. It goes literally in a straight line, but they're slim.
Well, here it gets complicated though, right? Because like I'm looking at Lightning's vintage denim.
Mm-hmm.
I just randomly open it's like the 40s section, right? And like any of the jeans I'm looking at from the 40s, they do taper, even though you would have called that straight leg at the time, right? Like this is definitely not as wide as that. So it's like, all right, well in the 40s there was still some notion of taper, and I go.
Some of that can be just due to the leg twist though.
Yeah.
the leg twist does accentuate the tapering, and the fact that they're shrink to fit, so the upper bit you'd be pushing out as it shrinks, while the bottom will continue.
I mean, all of these are tapered. I haven't
But
found a
David-
single one that doesn't have some level. I mean, it has to kind of trace the leg to a degree, right?
True, but that's what I mean. So if you look at the 1947s, right, Levi's 47s, normally you would see them as a regular straight. I would see them on my body. They fit like a regular straight, depending on the size I get and stuff. But they pretty much a regular straight. But they do taper slightly, and that's where
Of course, yeah.
they do taper slightly. But I'm still not going to call it a taper. But because in
Yeah.
my mind, tapered is pretty much anything that goes from the knee, that accentuates a bit more from the knee down, where you can visibly see the difference. Now that's for me. Sorry for people who are just listening. David
It's
just
1879, this
That's-
pair, but that's like,
I would-
it's still technically tapers, right? Even if subtly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, I'd say that's kind of what the material has done over time. Probably, if you found a dead stock version of that, probably from about the thigh down, it'd be pretty straight.
No, that's like multiple inches of difference. I'd say no way.
I mean,
I
it's,
mean,
it's
this
not,
one's
it's not going to be.
straighter.
It's not going to be like straight all the way down. It's not just going to be
Yeah.
like completely.
it rarely
You know.
is.
But
Yeah,
wasn't that
you-
your
you-
argument
you-
though? On
Well,
WhatsApp?
the argument is that it's what people are calling slim or what people are calling a straight is not really a straight. That was kind of what we were saying. But because when you said do the jeans go all the way straight all the way down, I joked that apart from Jinko, nobody makes a jean that goes all the way. Yes, of course there's going to be a little bit of taper, but it's not like aggressive taper.
Yeah. So
Just
yeah.
from the way you have to cut the pattern from that point on the crotch down a couple of inches, you've got to have a bit of a natural shape because your legs aren't
Exactly, it's not as wide as at the top, at the top of your leg than at the bottom of your leg. But if your hemline, I think if it goes smaller than 8 inches or 7 inches, depending on your waist size, obviously. I'm a 35, so if they go below 8 inches, it's becoming quite a tapered cut.
Yeah. One thing that
I
kind of
would agree with that. Anything less than 8 is tapered. I see it that way from the jeans that I buy.
And
yeah, I mean, well, actually, because these guys, I mean, again, it's size thing, right? Because these guys are like 8.1 or something like that, right? But I'm a 32, and so like a 32 with the 8.1 opening is still going to feel quite big. Whereas maybe for someone else, it's like a different size that wouldn't.
But then
it would never
it's still
tapered, right?
What's that?
It would never be tapered though.
This cut?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely call it a regular straight, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And I think also the ratio between the knee and the hem, I think matters how tapered it is. If it's quite aggressive from the knee down, then that has a taper. If it's still quite straight down, like that PBJ that we looked at, the difference between the knee and the hem was quite significant.
You mean the one that my pair?
No, the one that was on. I don't know if you have the same pair, but the measurements I sent in the WhatsApp chat,
regular straight.
it was a PBJ regular straight.
Now that's an interesting point because PBJ regular straight, from knee to hem is quite subtle, but their slim straight, what they call a slim straight, interestingly tapers extremely aggressively from the bottom of the rise to the knee, but then from the knee goes straight down so that it gives the impression that it's a straight cut. But like PBJ was even notoriously disliked for this in their early days, that they had such an aggressive taper to the knee that like people would feel like their thighs were cut off, like thigh circulation.
Their cut would come in at the knee and then actually taper out.
Yeah, even kind of sometimes bell out a little bit, like a subtle flare.
Sorry, not taper out, come out
Flare.
a bit. Yeah. So like on that pair, the difference on the 32 waist was an inch between the knee and the hem, which is, if you like a straight cut, that's quite a significant difference.
Well, here's something interesting. I've got my magic spreadsheet of garment measurements open, and I'm looking at a couple different jeans and comparing knee to hem.
Yeah.
So like Ironheart 666, which a lot of people know, roughly half an inch difference. 634, which a lot of people also know is kind of their most popular straight leg, about a 0.4 inch difference. My PBJs that I've been holding up, it's actually close to like 0.8 inches difference between knee and hem, but they're also quite loose in the top. So it's interesting too that like sometimes a wider jean can come up wider solely because they give you some extra room in the top block.
I think that's a big thing. Like I can't fit into any Ironheart jeans comfortably. I've tried. I think Andy has the same issue. I think he tried, several times, and they just, there's not enough in the top block for us because we've got moderately big thighs. So like, yeah. So I wouldn't think they are a great comparison for this kind of thing, and they're just not known for doing a wider cut or a proper regular straight or a straight jean. They've got like their own style, which is their lane and what they do. So yeah, I mean your body shape is a lot is more slim compared to Andy and myself, so you can get into those cuts easier. So for you, that that PBJ straight kind of works because you just have the body shape for it, and for you, yeah, it is a straight. Whereas if I put that on, it's gonna look quite slim on me.
Yeah, it's interesting too because like though I can wear a lot of jeans because of the fact that I'm slim, the fact that I'm 6'2", conversely rules out a lot of jeans, right? Because a lot of jeans just don't give me enough rise because they're not made for like a tall, lanky American dude. They're made for like a shorter Japanese guy. And so a lot of like really cool brands, it's like unless it's got like these days at least 11 inches, realistically 12 inches in the front rise, I probably just have to put it back on the shelf. And also, I don't taper a lot as a person, right? My thighs and my calves aren't that different. I don't go like this like some people. So something like RGT, Carl puts like a really strong taper, and a lot of RGT stuff, it feels like it's kind of like cellophaned to my calves. Even if I've got enough room in the waist and the top block. I guess maybe Carl is more or something like that.
Yeah, I think he's definitely looks like a more smaller body shape and more slender, and it works for him because he cuts everything to his shape, so he's wearing it and it has to fit him first. So yeah, again, it doesn't translate into the bigger sizes. Whereas yeah,
32 or 12 and a half front rise, just to give a comparison.
That's
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's like most of my regular straights on my spreadsheet are around 11 and a half, so really not even necessarily 12 in all cases.
And do you feel like looking back at some of your older jeans that you purchased years ago, do you think that rise is still something that's appealing for you, or do you think now the more that you've worn, you now want a bigger rise, or you kind of?
I've sold almost any pair of jeans I have that aren't either like a boot cut or a regular straight. Like my Free Note Wilks are probably the slimmest jeans I own these days, but they're like a cowboy cut, so they've got like 12-inch rise or something, even though they're not that loose. So they sit very high, which makes them compatible. But like any of my 316s and RGTs and like all the other stuff, I've mostly sold. And yesterday I was going through some of my chinos because I'm trying to sell a lot of shit. Although buying other things, it's not necessarily something I could preach about. But I was going through all of my like chinos and stuff, and I've got a couple of chinos that I would call tapered. And interestingly, it actually wasn't the rise or the top block that bothered me, but it's that calf thing where, like, for being a size 32 guy, maybe playing soccer when I was a kid, or maybe just the fact that I never developed like super huge thigh muscles or a big booty, basically means that anything that's a 32 that's tapered probably has too much taper below the knee. And so a lot of those old chinos, it felt like they were like clinging to me, and it was kind of creepy feeling. So like I was like, ooh, I used to love these RGTs, but like now they feel like they're like onto my calves, and like it kind of creeps me out. And also I got used to like the silhouette of a regular straight and how it falls on a pair of trousers, and it makes you look more balanced, right? Because you don't look like a carrot that kind of gets really spindly at the bottom. It's like it's straight, so you look more sturdy. And so also I feel weird if I'm like with like big old shoes coming out, like Ronald McDonald or something.
Well, especially if you've got quite big size feet as well. If you're like 6'2" and you're wearing a size 10 or 11,
Yeah.
and then you've got that really skinny leg or with a aggressive taper, and then those big boots, then it looks odd.
And the thing that sold me on it, I remember when I bought those Tanukis, and I remember I was asking your opinion, Ilya, about, and you guys, about what they looked like when I first bought them a few years ago. And it dawned on me, I was like, shit, if I look at like my shirts, I mean, most of them, some a bit, but most of them don't like onto your forearms. They're kind of like a similar silhouette all the way down. They kind of follow you the shape of your arm a bit. So there will be a little bit of taper as it gets closer to your wrist, but like it's not the case that they're like, this shirt's baggy, like super tight. And I was like, well, shit, if my shirts aren't tapering really, why should my trousers be tapering? If I'm going to wear, like skinny jeans, let's say, I should be wearing like running tops that are like skin tight, to match it. Or if I'm wearing more relaxed upper top clothing, then my jeans need to be a bit more relaxed as well. So kind of like to have that balance. And even now, go ahead.
No. Carry on. You were talking.
Yeah, I would say even now, if I've got like a slimmer jacket or a looser jacket, I'll usually try and make sure I wear a relatively slimmer jean or looser jean such that it looks kind of balanced top and bottom.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that and say I think it's quite important to balance out the top and bottom of your body with what you're wearing, because it does, the way it looks, it really helps. And especially depending on your height, on your, whether you're slim or wide or whatever it is, it definitely helps to make sure that you're balanced out on both ends.
One thing I wanted to bring up as part of this conversation, and I won't mention names because I don't want to like convey any of them in a negative light, but a shop I like had sent me an email newsletter, and I was kind of looking through some of their stuff, and I wonder what it must be like for these shops that have a lot of product in a particular cut and have really invested in a particular fit, and knowing that like as you alluded to in the WhatsApp, Ilya, that like tapered fits might be on the way out and like straight leg and loose leg on the way in. I wonder how you navigate that as a retailer effectively.
Well, I think you just slowly add those options, the wider options, the straighter options, whatever you're missing, and to see whether there is a demand from your customer that is actually asking for it. They might not be asking, they might have their customers might be really happy with the high tapered cuts that they've been buying, and they're not looking to change. Obviously they're going to add those as they see things changing around. Others might not, might just stick to what they're doing because they've been successful for a number of years and they don't need to change. If they have their identity, which is very strong, like someone like Ironheart, they've got a really strong identity. I don't think they need to worry about, we need to bring out a really heritage wide cut. It would work, but it's not something I think that if they don't do, they're going to go broke or out of business. So, but if you're a multi-brand retailer, then yeah, you're going to probably be looking at diversifying your range and adding some, wider cuts just to test the market, test the audience. And especially if people are contacting them and saying, "Oh, like, have you got this or have you got that?" Then they're gonna if they're a good business, they're gonna react and bring those options to their lineup. So I think it's I'm sure a lot of these businesses are looking at it and seeing what's going on, and they won't be blind to these things. And if they are, then they'll soon find out.
Yeah, it's interesting. It brings me back, I guess, to our episode on the kind of denim archetypes, right? Where like if you're a brand and you design your brand for a denim archetype, like RGT is kind of for like the skater who grew up. Ironheart, with the exception of like the stuff that Giles designed, is for like the kind of motorcycle rider. You've kind of got these different like archetypes. And I guess, yeah, you're right that a brand who makes jeans would probably stick to their archetype, relatively speaking. And then, yeah, I guess if you're a shop, you're just thinking about kind of like your sales metrics and like what's getting sold out, what's getting left on the shelves, and adjusting your buy each season.
Anything that we think that we've missed out or like to add on
I think
this?
I think something that'd be good to hear from each of you guys is like, what do you think is the ideal cut? Either an aesthetic that like it's like, oh, any jean that looks like X is my ideal, or a specific brand and model or brand and fit that you think's like the best, or your favorite.
Okay, I'll go first. I think the ED2 jeans.
Is ED the name of the company?
I was about to say by this really little known brand.
You stumbled there.
Definitely the owner's Asian.
I can't see that comment
English
now.
name, really weird guy. Yeah, don't know how he got that. No, I mean I would say kind of my kind of perfect fit would be a little bit roomy on the rise, maybe not too high, but mid to mid high. So 11 3/4, 12, something like that. A little bit roomy around the bum so you can move around, and then straight off the hips, maybe with a tiny bit of shape to them, like really subtle amount of shape, but still kind of wide enough at the bottom to wear boots. So yeah, that would be my go-to, I think, which is usually kind of ticked by like that kind of 50s style, mostly for most brands.
Detail. I'm on board with Tom pretty much. That's what fits me best, I would say. I've experimented a bit with different cuts and stuff. And previously a bit more tapered, but always roomy and on the seat and a little bit on the thighs as well. But yeah, as soon as the thighs are brought in a bit, then they just look a bit weird on me. Yeah. So I would go definitely with that. Speaking of which,
I'd say if you're like a slim to skinny guy, taper it up a little bit more. Still have a little bit of room on the top block. Taper it up, because it's funny actually. Since I've been wearing my new loose jeans, white boys.
It sounds like you're saying white boys. Just
I know every time.
If you say why duh boys, then well, actually that still sounds kind of like white boys. Anyways,
white boys. No.
Could edit that out.
I think I bring down the whiteness a little bit. Well, I haven't been on holiday. Look, the lighting's really bad as well for this game. Like since I've been wearing my wider cut, people at work who know me are like, "Oh, we don't like you in that. That doesn't suit you at all." Because I had a fairly tapered cut before that. So one depends on who's looking at you. If you've got a significant other who doesn't like you in wide cuts, then you won't be wearing wide cuts. And two, depends what shape or form you are.
Ilya?
So I mean, my last few pairs have all kind of qualified for this, and I agree with Tom's description. That's basically what I'm looking for. I want a quite a high rise, actually, just below my belly button probably, and something a little bit higher on the back rise. I like tucking my shirts in. On the bike. I want to have that coverage. I want to have that comfort. I want to easily lift my leg over the bike, so on, without having any restrictions. So the TCB 40s was for me, a favorite cut, and I've wore those for a year, and I really loved it because it's really balanced. Um, I I think having worn them after a year, I kind of wished I had maybe a little bit more room in the leg, which I then found through the Black Horse Lane jeans, the SE1s, which are really wide, and they've been really, really, really comfortable. I really like that. What else? I think a warehouse always do a great straight and looser cut. So they're like the S1000, which is like a 40s repro cut, is really great. So I think those would be kind of my options to go for. But yeah, I want a high rise. I want plenty of thigh room, and then a fairly straight leg down, so I can wear big boots without them kind of suffocating the boot shaft.
Got to air it out.
Got to air it out, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of boot shafts, it's funny how I was thinking that.
Go on. Let's hear it.
No, I was just thinking that how obviously military, the military garments influence always pretty much everything, right? Anything military influences everything. And it's funny how I just realized this, that like I remember in my late teens, in the late 90s, I would wear my my probably like 8 to 12 inch boots with my jeans sometimes in the boot, as military would do it. But then if you see even throughout military, like World War II, they're not. Let me think. Maybe World War II, they're not using it in the boot, but they're using it over it, and with a wider leg. So it's both. Because in my head I was like, yeah, before I used more tapered so I can see more the shaft of the boot, but now I'm using them a bit straighter, but I still see the shaft of the boot because it's just how I hem them. But it just has that space, which is a bit more free flow, which I appreciate it as well. So I just realized how it's still influenced by military, in every single way, pretty much.
I think there's a real kind of change in kind of the way military wear was used after like Vietnam or during Vietnam. So it was a totally kind of different combat arena. And you saw kind of, fatigues were a lot slimmer, maybe tucked into jungle boots. So yeah, maybe that's where that kind of difference.
That's probably from practical reasons as well. They probably want to be keeping mosquitoes out, keeping dirt out, so on and so on. So yeah, it kind of exactly those kind of things. It's with when you're talking about the military, it's all about function. It's all about doing things that are gonna help yourself out in the field. And obviously that influences what people do when they're wearing their styles kind of
Only Andy
on the street. Andy would have given us a very comprehensive answer about this.
Greatest hero of them all.
We should just do like an Uncle Andy segment where he like talks about military history and stuff like that, and kind of relates it back to our interests.
Yeah, but then when you look at uniform, more military uniform, it would have had like a straight cut. Again, depending on the eras. If you look at, chinos, you'd have really, really wide cuts in the 40s. And then the British Army, they would have very straight trouser cuts as well. So
yeah, very different between kind of British and American. American was just workwear, but just converted into army uniforms essentially. They'd get any old factory from Lee and all that lot making uniforms, just sew up a chore jacket, stick it on a US Marine, and they're good to go. While British, was almost kind of a high form of tailoring with a lot of their jackets, up to the belly button with the trousers and
very different climates.
Yeah, and you had a lot of sports brands also being contracted to make clothes for the military as well. So they would have, used what they had on hand to make uniforms based on what they kind of knew.
Yeah,
and what they think they would have applied for it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a different environments because obviously America and Europe, Britain and Europe. It's more the British have a pompous sense of dress when it comes to uniforms, which maybe the Americans don't have due to our history and America's lack thereof.
Another big thing too is like the whole history of woolen garments and the woolen fabric trade in the UK and tailoring history and stuff like that, where it's just sort of more commonplace aspects of your culture.
Yeah, I guess that the time generals would have been around during World War I and World War II. Some of them probably would have been fighting as redcoats, so they've still got that dress sense that it lingers on. Because I think we only changed to kind of khakis in 1880, 1890, something like that, kind of during the Boer War. We changed to that kind of olive drab, green wool kind of look. But even still, that's all kind of highly tailored and, suspenders underneath and all that lot. So, yeah.
And wasn't it like either World War I or World War II where a lot of the like British military leaders were basically members of very wealthy families, right? So like all of the like nobility in the country, they were like going and fighting in the wars. And so they obviously had to look good because they're from very rich families, but they're like on the front of the trenches,
I mean, that's every war.
Really?
Just go to any kind of officer academy. A bunch of rich bum boys.
Sounds like we've got another episode topic here developing.
Homosexuality in the British Armed Forces.
No.
Yeah, I feel like we've diverged onto a completely different topic here.
Yeah. I never got to mention my ideal cut, although I kind of alluded to it earlier, but I'll mention it anyways. I think actually a few brands are kind of exemplifying the jean I like best. So I would say PBJ's regular straight. Tanuki actually is maybe even my favorite, the Tanuki regular straight, because it's kind of a modernized regular straight, so it really fits well. And then though I don't own a pair, I would say probably Ironheart's 634. And across all of these, what I think matters is that they kind of do hug the hips. Like for me, that's a really big thing. I hate being able to pinch fabric like at my hips, because like I don't want to be made any wider than I already am. I'm skinny and I'm tall, and like that's fine. So I like a clean drape from the hips downwards that looks straight, even if it is a little bit tapered. But I can't.
Sorry, David. So you're not looking for shape. You want to have the more straight.
No, it's more like I don't want it to like come out at all. It like needs to sit against me in the hips. And then kind of drape down from the hips, and maybe a little taper to the knees. But like the last thing I want is to feel like I've got bunches of fabric on the
David's hips don't lie.
like parachute pants. I don't ever want to feel like I'm wearing parachute pants.
I still hope you embrace your heritage, man, and show up in
one day.
One day. So like embrace your Texas heritage, coming in with cowboy boots, And,
well, I'm wearing a Western jean now. I had cowboy boots, but they don't fit me anymore. I've got a Stetson in storage, nice. And I've got a big Longhorn belt buckle. Alluding to a future episode, maybe at some point I should get Sierra and South Matt to make a hat for me.
Do it, man.
Big old 10-gallon hat, man.
It's beautiful. I love mine.
I reckon it might be nice. But
Neon?
shit, no, man.
Oh, black.
It's
Has
gotta
to
be
be black.
It's gotta
Has
be
to be
black.
black. With a neon band.
Maybe hidden on the inside. Yeah.
I would love to have one of those, man. A black one, black on black, really cool.
I'd probably want more like a Roadmaster type hat, something a little bit more dialed down than like a proper cowboy hat.
Like a fedora, almost.
No, it's a Stetson, but it's like a little bit more dialed down. How do you describe them? It's
Is that open road?
well, the Roadmaster, I thought that's what it's called. It's similar to the Open Road, maybe even the same thing.
Just trying to Google Roadmaster.
I mean, I'll be honest, I know very little about hats, so it's the Open Road kind of meets the same.
There's a Roadster.
Yeah, I mean they all I mean you can tell how much I know about hats. They all look kind of the same to me. Yeah, Stetson, Open Road, Roadmaster, they all kind of meet the same need.
Yeah, I think it's fedora. They look fedora size almost. Like the.
I'd rock one of those. I've got pictures of me in my all my cowboy kit somewhere.
I think that should be a future Sons of Selvedge post on the Instagram feed.
Yeah. Shame I don't have any pictures where I had my huge ass handlebar mustache at the same time as wearing all of my cowboy kit. That would have been cool. But maybe that's a future.
You're getting all sorts of attention. Probably not the kind that you want.
Man, at this point in life, I'll take any attention. Life's a bit lonely these days, but hey.
Experimenting, are we?
You heard it here first.
Not literally, no, but you know. it's a bit of hyperbole, but you know.
Okay.
I'll come wearing like a horse silicone head.
No judgment here, David. It's all good.
No, I jest.
I just pictured everyone showing up in Austin, you there with a completely different David with a giant hat, with a belt buckle, with the whole thing going on, and we turn up, and you just look at your friends and go like, "Oh, these Europeans," you know.
You know, to be honest, like people there dressed exactly like we do. Actually, they Americans just generally dress less well than Brits. Like style is a little bit less of an important thing on average. A lot more t-shirts, a lot more kind of like cargo shorts, and more comfort, and less kind of like looking good. But also, it's just so freaking hot, you kind of have to dress cooler. But no, I mean the Austin style really is kind of like rocker with a bit of Western mixed in. So like rocker style with a pair of cowboy boots, or like rocker with like a cowboy hat. So it's definitely this kind of like almost a little bit like what you like, rockabilly, honky tonk. I actually went to a bar at Christmas that's like a straight up like honky tonk style rock bar. So it's like rock and roll country music. Like it was cool. It was really cool. I think it's called the White Horse. No correlation to David Bowie, but yeah. Anyways, it's cool. I'm still trying to find this picture, but I'm probably not going to find it, of my handlebar mustache. No one cares. So yeah, exactly.
Save it for the feed. Save it for the feed.
God. Oh Lord. Yeah, I guess I will. Cool. Well, I guess any final thoughts? Anything else, or should we maybe call it?
I think we covered fits quite well.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. We don't.
All right. So on that note, thanks everybody again for listening to the 25th. Wow, that's amazing. Episode of the Sons of Selvedge podcast.
Well done, guys.
Like us, follow us, review us anywhere you get your podcast content, including on our YouTube channel, which is great because you can actually see our beautiful mugs in person, kind of. And lastly, if you want to get in touch with any questions of future episodes, message us on Instagram, or holler if you want to hang out on our Discord. And on that note, I'll stop the recording.